966.
This is the 966, episode 68. Mr. Richard Wilson, hello. How are you?
We're going to break 70 in our first year.
We are going to break 70 in our first year. We are red hot. You can't get rid of us right now.
And
smoking hot. And Richard, we're going to have a little fun this week. We're going to be talking about the World Cup in Qatar, some stuff on Saudi soccer, and really all things about this first World Cup to be held in the Arab world. We've got a really interesting conversation coming up, a shorter conversation, but a fun conversation with Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, a former guest of the 966. And just a really great conversation. He attended the World Cup in Qatar and might be going back for the quarterfinals. So we're, of course, super jealous of that. We're going to give props to our Saudi friends for a really good match against Argentina. We'll get to all this stuff in a second. And actually, Richard, I noticed that you have some flair today for the YouTube video viewers. We've got a Saudi flag and a U.S. flag in the back representing both. Richard, I also have some flair that I'd like to show you and our YouTube viewers, and I'm saying this as a surprise. Can't believe you didn't notice it, by the way, but I will be representing the Saudi side.
Look at this.
Saudi World Cup jersey.
Oh, I don't know you're going to stand up for that.
Yeah, can you see it?
You're Green Falcons. Nice.
So this is a gift from another former guest, Dr. Aziz Al-Nazi, who gave it to me in Riyadh a few weeks ago.
Good job. What am I? Aziz, I'm a friend too.
Your size may not be available. I don't know.
That's true, but that's awesome. I love it.
Both of us, Richard, I think I can speak for both of us, are U.S. soccer fans, of course. Yeah. Red, white, and blue always. But it was really cool to see the Saudi side this World Cup do very well. And actually, Richard, before we get to Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, let's talk a little bit about the World Cup in Saudi.
Well, I'm excited because we were sitting around going, we have our schedule and we have our bookings and we try and keep ahead of the game, but we realized we needed to do a World Cup episode. So, what's the best way to do it? So I reached out to some friends and Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, who, by the way, just so everyone knows, go back and find that episode. He's director of behavioral insights and the nudge unit at the Ministry of Health, does some fascinating stuff.
Yep.
He went to a couple of the group stage games. So he can give us a firsthand account of that Saudi fan experience. And like Lucian said, he'll probably go back. And again, we are envious. Yeah, I do have two flags. Both teams are eliminated, but both teams acquitted themselves well. And I think met, if not surpassed, expectations. So everyone can feel good about that. But let's talk about the World Cup. So before we get to Mohammed, sort of things that are on my mind about the World Cup. So here we have the World Cup. It's, along with the Olympics, the most watched. I mean, the biggest sporting event in the world. And Lucian, I think you'll agree, in the run-up to the World Cup, much of what we were seeing in the Western media, at least, was skepticism. I mean, how did Qatar become the host in the first place? How will, this tiny little state, this, country the size of Connecticut, deal with the crowds and logistics and the drinking and what about LGBTQ matters? What about labor practices, human rights record, all these things. I think that dominated a lot of the media coverage here. Now that we're a little over 2 weeks into the World Cup. So we're through the group phase. We're past the first knockout round and into quarterfinals there's only 8 teams left. I think it's worthwhile to take a look at what's happened. And, see this World Cup from a broader perspective, and one maybe that is less concerned about if there's Budweiser in the stadiums or, armband protests on the pitch. But before we get that, on the operational side, again, big question. And I think from all reports and Wall Street Journal quotes, matches have gone off without a hitch, 4 each day, all within 35 miles of each other. The desert heat isn't a problem. No have crowds overwhelmed or an untested new transit system, or the 100 daily flights delivering fans from surrounding countries, unquote. And Mohammed will talk about this, his experience, which corroborates what Wall Street Journal is saying. I also think it's worthwhile, again, trying to step back. I mean, this is the first global sporting event in the post-pandemic era. And so, 2021 Tokyo Olympics, Nobody in the stands, no foreign spectators. They were banned. 2022 Beijing Olympics, same thing. In Doha, first time in 3 years, thousands of people cramming themselves into stadiums every day. So let's get back to the theme. All right, this is a 22nd World Cup. It's impressive. FIFA has been organizing these since 1930 in Uruguay. When the U.S. finished its highest ever, we finished third. I don't know how many teams were in
third out of three, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly. Whoever could make their way to Uruguay in 1930 could have a spot in the World Cup. But it's pretty amazing. So, this is, and it tests the global popularity of soccer. So you've had a World Cup every 4 years, except for 1942 and 1946 because of World War II. And but to be honest, I mean, the World Cup has really been about Europeans and South American teams. Brazil has 5 World Cups, Germany and Italy 4 each, France, Uruguay, and Argentina 2 each, and England and Spain 1 each. So that's your 21 World Cup winners today. Nary an Asian team, nary an African team, much less a Middle Eastern team. And again, by all reports, this World Cup has a much more global vibe. For the first time, all six of the populated continents were represented in the round of 16. This includes 2 teams from Africa, Senegal and Morocco, and 3 teams from Asia, Japan, South Korea, and Australia. And now, with Morocco beating Spain to get into the quarters, they become only the 6th non-European or South American team in close to 100 years to make it past the first knockout round. Again, big picture. It wasn't until 2002 that an Asian country even hosted the World Cup. And this was South Korea and Japan did it, co-hosted. And not till 2010, until an African team hosted the World Cup. That was South Africa in 2010. So 2022, Qatar's first Arab country to host a World Cup. So again, by all reports, there's a noticeable and significant fan solidarity in Doha among Asian, African, and Middle Eastern fans. Again, Mohammed will talk about this in the main segment. Saudi Arabia's victory over Argentina was widely celebrated. Same with Japan's defeat of Spain and Germany in the group phase. Tunisia topping France, celebrated widely. Morocco is not only Africa's pride, but I think the darling of Asian and Middle Eastern fans as well. Huge. I mean, you have a Green Falcons fan. I bet you, if you had a Morocco, the Atlas Lions fan shirt, all our Saudi friends would be, cheering that too. But let's talk about Morocco just for a second, because this is one of the interesting aspects of this World Cup. Between the 32 teams to qualify for this World Cup, 136 players, 16%, are representing countries other than the ones in which they were born. So in the past, this would be, say, an Algerian playing for France or a Moroccan playing for Spain. But in fact, the majority of these 136 players in this World Cup play for Africa's 5 teams that qualified. And if you look at Morocco, more than half of the Morocco squad was born elsewhere. Ashraf Hakimi, who executed that final penalty kick, Panenka, to eliminate Spain. You probably know what that term means.
That was incredible.
Was in fact born to Moroccan parents in Spain and raised in Spain, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, he knocks out, the country he grew up in, representing, the country that his parents were born in. So anyway, all this to say, the World Cup feels a lot more global. And I think that reality is it seems to be widely appreciated. Almost 2.5 million fans attended the 48 group phase games, 96% stadium occupancy. This place is sold out. I mean, just hopping. And this 2.5 million number is the largest since the 1994 World Cup in the United States. So anyway, it's exciting. It's got a vibe. And just over 2 weeks into it, with about 10 days to go, I think thus far, the World Cup in Qatar has been a remarkable success. Tremendous attendance, exciting football, and limited controversy, and it seems to be a lot of happy fans.
Yeah, I mean, happy fans there in Qatar, happy fans watching worldwide. I think Richard, there, and this is just totally anecdotal, but it seems like there's more interest in this World Cup in the U.S. this time around. This just could just be me being more interested. And that was great, Richard. I am very interested in the World Cup and have been watching it. There's certain things that matter about it to me, like the timing of the host country. So like it's really nice that for the group stage, there was a game coming on when I was waking up, really early with my kids. There's a game being played, actively. And then there's another game after that at around 10 a.m. in the US, and then another game around at 2 p.m. in the US. So there was just soccer on all morning, which is a kind of a nice background.
And all day,
sport.
Really. I mean,
yeah,
because they had a 10 a.m. start, a 2 p.m. start.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, all day, like you said. Yeah, and so it was kind of nice. Richard, I'm sure that your children did as well, and you probably did. But I grew up playing a lot of soccer, and I've totally lost interest in playing it, for fun. But I grew up playing a lot of soccer. American kids typically give it up for other sports because there are a lot of options here for playing different sports. I gave it up for basketball and baseball and hockey and tennis and now golf. Just sort of fell off, but it's a great sport for kids because you get to play with other kids and it's safe and, it's fun. You get to be outside and it's a nice babysitting activity for dropping your kids off at soccer practice. So Americans do have a lot of exposure to soccer, but it's not the fandom isn't quite there, but you can kind of see that changing. I mean, I kind of feel into soccer right now. I've watched almost all of these World Cup games, at least part of them that were on TV. It's sort of like, how can we not like something that the world likes so much? It's like the number one sport for the world. And we're sort of like, yeah, it's like 7 or 8 here. Maybe like we get up for the team, but there's stuff that I dislike about soccer, fake injuries. That's probably the one thing that I sort of is really brutal to watch. Sort of thinking about it though, Richard, can you name the one team sport though, where there are no fake injuries at all? There's really only one.
UFC?
Yeah, well, so that's not a team sport, but
that's true. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so golf would also be one where there's no point in ever faking an injury, but really it's baseball. If you think about it, in football, there's fake pass interference and guys rolling around on the turf to stop the clock for various reasons. Yeah. Basketball, you're faking for a foul. Yeah, flopping. So it's really not that uncommon. It's just something about the soccer players doing it to me seems like really egregious. But anyway, totally seamless, smooth execution from Qatar. I guess one could have said that they would see that coming, but it really has been impressive. Driving up the cost of my flight to Riyadh next week and hotel next week, people are staying in Riyadh and UAE and flying over to Qatar. So it's just the way it is. Exhilarating games. Richard, you mentioned them, so we don't need to really go too far into them, but Japan over Germany, Morocco recently over Spain. And we should talk about this too, the Saudi over Argentina. That was unreal. 2 shootouts this week. I mean, it's exciting stuff. Like, it's really cool. So I'm into soccer now. I know I've said that I've committed to Arsenal. Chelsea.
My goodness. I thought it was Chelsea.
Yeah. Chelsea. Yeah.
Are you going to abandon?
No, I'm not jumping the ship. Chelsea. I'm sticking with Chelsea, but I'm actually going to start watching some games, which is exciting. Aren't they playing now? Isn't the EPL going on now? Anyway,
I would think. I think it's on hiatus, isn't it? Because all the best players.
I would hope so, or they'd be pretty.
That was part of the controversy. You got to we're having the World Cup in winter instead of so they had to rearrange their schedule in order to have for Doha to host it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, endless controversy in the run up to it.
Yeah, but then once they launched it, super smooth. And then, Richard, we should talk about the Saudi Green Falcons win over Argentina, which is historic and also caused a day off the next day from King Salman. It was a huge deal. Yeah. You have been in and out of Saudi for decades, so you sort of know that there's enormous pride with the Saudi football club and with Saudi's local league. And Saudi Arabia did have a big win in the World Cup that was held here in the U.S. in the 90s, I think. I can't remember who they played, but they had some big upset win and everyone went crazy. My parents were at that game, believe it or not. And they told me about this when Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. Yeah, but just how big was this for Saudi?
And people don't know. in this era, we just dismiss things. Saudi Arabia, Saudis, Newcastle United, this flirtation with Cristiano Ronaldo, possibly coming Al Nasser, blah blah blah. It's all sports washing. But people don't know that Saudi Arabia has a long and deep and widespread relationship with football. They love their teams. They have first professional teams in the 60s. I mean, they've got the Saudi Professional League, 16 teams, first division, 20 teams, second division, 28 teams, third division, 32 teams. And each of these is sort of getting more professionalized and growing and more aggressive, and trying to, build better teams. I mean, they've won the 3 Asian Cups, going back to 1984, qualified for the World Cup 6 times. So it's not like Saudis just discovered soccer because it was, it'll promote tourism or anything like that, or they want to get, they want a sports one. They love soccer, and they feel like this is their World Cup because it's right next door. So I think that's one of the things that's come out of this is that, this is a authentic love and cultural enthusiasm for this Green Falcons team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And they it's not like Saudi Arabia is getting into hockey. It's like there's a lot of people playing soccer in Saudi Arabia. And so yeah, it was just so cool, and everyone was so stoked about it. It's almost like without that, and if they had made the round of 16, but without the Argentina win, it wouldn't have felt like they had a ton of momentum going forward. And it does feel like that now, because it's just like, well, if they're capable of beating Argentina with the greatest soccer player ever playing well, he's playing well in this tournament, actually. If they're capable of doing that, they're capable of going farther next time. And that's exciting for them. And I think that this Green Falcons jersey will hopefully still fit in 4 years. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're fun to watch. I mean, the U.S. team, obviously they didn't even qualify in 2018. And you look at them, they were the youngest team, second youngest team, but they fielded the youngest team, in their latter games in the group phase in the whole tournament. I mean, they have team speed, they're athletic, their midfielders are strong. I mean, there's something to build on there, something to be excited about. But it's not really exciting soccer. I mean, their strikers and forwards aren't particularly notable. Green Falcons are just flying all over the place. They're kind of fun to watch, They're
very aggressive, that team cohesion. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, the other thing, Richard, is the U.S. doesn't even have to worry about qualifying next time. We can just coast in the run up, because we'll be hosting with Mexico and Canada. Does Mexico and Canada also get automatic bids, or how does that work?
They do. And by the way, again, I do believe there's more of a global vibe here, because you have more Asian and African teams that have had some success and stuff. But the next one, 2026 in the US, Canada, Mexico, is going to be even more global, because they're expanding the field to 48 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So fantastic, and it should be interesting. You're going to have more surprises, because obviously with expansion comes dilution. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have some really surprise teams come up, and Cinderellas, and this is all good. It's fun.
And what seems to be missing from the U.S. team, as a total amateur, espousing my opinion, is that we don't really have the marquee, like we don't have the big player, that some of these, as we're down to the quarterfinals now, it seems like every team has one or two stars, some of them a lot more, but you've got like Mbappe from France, and obviously Messi from Argentina. Ronaldo was actually not even starting in the last game. Right. He came in, and but we need we need the superstar, I think, to really get,
I definitely think that's what's missing. I mean, across the board, we're athletic, young, and fast, but there's nobody. And this is something it's kind of obnoxious to say, because these athletes are so good at their craft, they work so hard, but there's nobody like Mbappe or Messi, and these are bad comparisons, but there's nobody who's special.
Mm-hmm.
Who just, you see them on the field, they stand out, and they're going to make special things happen. And I think we really got stuck. I mean, what did we scored 1 goal in 3 games?
Yeah.
I mean, no, we scored 2, one of which was a complete accident. But Um, but that was the only way we were going to survive was shutting people out because we just didn't have that flair, that strike, that extra something up front.
Yeah, really good point. I mean, because it's like you watch Mbappe or you watch Messi, and for some reason, it's just like they're always scoring goals, and it's hard to understand because it's like it doesn't seem like they're doing anything that different. But it's just like, oh, Messi's just going to do one or two dribbles, and then it's just like in the back of the net, and you're like, wow, like how, how is this possible?
And that's why you can have, that's where, I mean, every endeavor from medicine to athletics to anything, there's a significant part of science and technique, but then there's that last element of art.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's something, people like Messi and Mbappe, they were born with an instinct to know where the ball's going, how to get there, and every angle, they see things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And totally you cannot train that.
Yeah, I love the French jerseys. By the way, the French have such good kits always, and in the kit. That's a soccer term,
Go.
And in the Olympics as well. I don't know why. Their stuff they always look so cool. But let's hope that. So they're playing England this weekend, which should be very, very interesting. A War of the Roses. But in 2022 and on the soccer field, I think there's going to be a very high viewership of this in both countries.
Well, and they're all interesting. I mean, Croatia, Brazil's just, looks like they're gelling right the right time. Morocco, Portugal just pasted. Who did they just paste?
Was it Croatia?
No, Croatia's in.
So they're in. No, yeah. Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, good Swiss. That's a good Swiss team.
Yeah, but they got dragged all over the field by that.
Yeah, and then Netherlands, Argentina, and this is fun. It is fun.
It is fun, and Richard, this was fun as a nice sort of mix up. To be able to talk about the World Cup. Yes.
Before we go, a trivia question.
Okay.
I referenced the percentage, the number of players who are not playing for the countries in which they were born.
Okay.
There are four teams in this tournament for which every one of the players is homegrown. Can you name those four teams?
Okay, so it's not Qatar.
No, I think 16 of their 26 are not homegrown.
Yeah, I would probably guess Saudi. And so does that disqualify? So that's one, yeah, because it kind of seems
Saudi.
Like, okay,
that's
cool.
a good pull. That's a good pull.
Saudi would be one.
Saudi, every Saudi is a homegrown player.
Homegrown. So you mean born in the country?
Born in the country.
Okay. Yeah. So not a naturalized citizen. Okay.
Right. And by the way, that speaks to the depth of the Saudi football culture, is that you can field a team of 26 really good ball players, all born in Saudi.
Okay. So then I would probably say Japan and South Korea. Are they?
South Korea.
Okay, so Japan's got some sandbaggers. Okay, cool. So I got it.
They're below 10%. So it's not, it may be one or two, but yeah, you're right. So you've got two. You got Saudi. You've got South Korea
and Mexico.
They're not in there. They're not one of the four.
Okay. Okay. Can I let me do one more guess? Wow, because it's hard because you have to think about where people would be moving to like claim citizenship, and so yeah.
You also have to think about what countries, football culture is deep enough and broad enough and populated enough to not have to worry about anybody picking up people from another country.
Right. So I mean, so like France, there's probably no chance, right? And England, because they have two very popular leagues. Right.
But on top of that, they were both colonial powers.
Indeed.
So you have a lot of that's another thing that's interesting about this tournament is how global immigration, has impacted all these squads, especially the European squads.
We need it to impact the United States squad. It seems like we're not really benefiting,
Obviously, we're a polyglot nation. I mean, the US is 20%, not US born.
So we got South Korea, and we've got Saudi. Who are the other two?
Brazil and Argentina.
That is so interesting and almost obvious, right? Because they're the two of the top five teams. no one would immigrate there to get citizenship to play, or whatever. There's so much talent there that is homegrown. They don't need it. That's fascinating. So I was thinking more like, who, like the Saudi story makes sense, because it's, they don't have a lot of people first of all, it's hard to get Saudi citizenship until very recently, but wow, that's fascinating.
But you did a good job. I mean, you got 2 out of 4.
2 out of 4 is 50%. It's still an F, but
50%. That puts you about. You still don't have that still doesn't equal a number of non-Moroccans on the Moroccan team, but it's a good number.
I'm rooting for that Morocco team, by the way. They are so scrappy, and the crowd looked so fun. Like they were going nuts during that shootout, and their goalie, as we discussed off the air, that was so cool. Dancing.
And do
back
we
and
know
forth.
what a panenka is?
I don't know what that is. No.
Oh, all right.
Panenka?
Panenka. So on a penalty kick, you have, it's the ultimate of, what is it? Just confidence. I don't know, just swag, just like complete swagger. So panenka is a penalty kick directly at the goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Counting on them diving one way or the other.
Gosh, what a great meme it would be if the goalie knew it was coming and then just like swatted it down and just stared the guy down.
That's why you have to have some real swagger to try it, because you could look really good or look really stupid.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess it was the Japanese side, but they, like, all of their penalty kicks seemed like I could do better than that. Like they were just kicking them slow and on the ground. I was like, let's go for the corner here. I mean, like they're going to save those. Yeah. How do they like, is the goalie, like, what's a good qualifying characteristic for a goalie? Are they typically like tall with long arms? Like, are they,
Gumby is
Gumby.
Good. A 7-foot Gumby is ideal.
Yeah, because you think like the Dutch goalie would be like 6'8", like the whole like Netherlands team is just like they all seem a little bit taller than all the other teams, which is just interesting. And then you have that one U.S. forward, and I can't remember his name, who's got to be like 5'1", and he looks like he's got like turbo, like in FIFA the game, where he's just like going around other players, So it's
not
like,
Robinson. It's it might be Dest.
I think it is. Yeah, and he had like bleached hair or something.
He was good. He was one of the better players for the U.S. for sure. Dest.
Yeah. Well, we've got 4 years now to really tighten things up. Maybe get a little offense. We'll be playing. I think there will be games being played in Philadelphia. Richard is the closest city to us in D.C. But
the women, Audi Fields in Washington, right here, and and that's the thing. It's funny because the FIFA World Cup is coming next year. For women's World Cup, and that's only been held since 1991. But there's been 8 World Cups and we've won 4. So you can see why our interest in the women's national team is much greater typically than the men's national team.
And they're now getting paid the same as the men, right? So, which is really nice, given that they are winners. I also love, and we are going long on this. Richard, this is surprising. I kind of thought, we'll talk a few minutes about the World Cup. It's actually, we're sorry for everybody. We're just sort of bantering here. Yeah, but it's really interesting how women, they're. I kind of like watching that a little bit more, and I think it's because the U.S. team is always winning, and so. But I mean, women's soccer seems like it's just as good as men. I mean, I don't know, to me anyway. It's just one little observation.
Yeah, no, technically it's nice, and you're right. It's always nice to back a winner. I mean, some of this, and that's the thing. You see some of these really top teams, what they do in space, the tight space, and the instinctive gives and goes and anticipation. It's just magical to watch. I mean. Yeah, I'm an American. Some soccer matches are just drudge. Mm-hmm. Even if I can understand the technical expertise of just managing a possession, but boy, when you see these guys in space, I'm going, oh my goodness, that's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane. It's also like. There's trudge and there's like, wow, they're passing backward, they're like passing to the goalie. Like, why is it going so slowly? And then you have the U.S. match against Iran, like the last 10 minutes was just like absolutely excruciating. And I was like, wow, these are two extremes.
I aged a decade on that thing.
It's so funny. You like it's like a dad at their kid's sports event. You don't even sit down to watch. You like stand up with your arms crossed and you just stare at it. You know, you're just like, geez. So
That was excruciating. You're right.
good stuff from Qatar hosting the World Cup. Good programming in the U.S. with Fox running it has been really good. It just all of it's been awesome. Really enjoying it. Looking forward to the next one. Looking forward to watching some Chelsea. Interesting to kind of after this to compare it how these guys are playing for clubs where they're getting paid. People are obviously very into that. So it's like how are the players as passionate? Like are the regular season games as interesting as this? So I'll be interested to maybe see that.
So you've got energized. Your EPL fandom is energized.
I'm energized. Yeah, that's right. But then the NFL was on Sunday, so that took precedence over the soccer. So.
That's in our DNA.
That's right. Yeah. Richard, what do you think? Let's get to our conversation with Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, who was at the World Cup. It's just really great. A lot of fun.
Dr. Mohammed, Saudi superfan.
We're speaking now with Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, Director of the Behavioral Insights and Nudge Unit at the Ministry of Health, who now not only wears the honor of being a repeat guest on the 966, he was also an attendee at the World Cup this year in Qatar. And that is what we would love to speak with you about. Dr. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, Mohammed, thanks so much. Yes, and I want to reiterate, because I've always loved, and by the way, go back and listen to our episode with Dr. Mohammed. It was really good.
From early May, it's great. Yep.
As Director of Behavioral Insights and Nudge Unit. So anything that's going on in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed has something to do with. Anything good.
Thank you. Yeah.
All the good
Making
stuff.
it happen. Yes, we're living vicariously through you, Mohammed. We're doing a World Cup episode, and we wanted to talk with friends who had been there. Mm-hmm. And so you have you went to a couple matches, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And how was your experience? And let me give a little background, and we'll do an intro on this. But this is the attendance at this World Cup, Qatar's World Cup. This the group of 48. So obviously, we're not done yet. Almost 2.5 million people showed up in Qatar for this World Cup, which is insane. It's the largest number since the 1994 Olympics in the U.S. And the largest contingent, understandably, but still an impressive contingent, was the Saudis with close to 80,000 fans there. So, and you were one of those Saudi fans at a couple of matches. How was this experience?
Oh, I mean, the first game, I think was one of the major upsets in the World Cup history. Everybody's agreeing on that. So being in the stadium for that specific game against Argentina was pretty electric. I mean, the atmosphere there was just overwhelming, and everybody was having a lot of fun. The physical environment in the stadium, the Lusail Stadium, is just an iconic building in itself. So being there with like 85,000 other like spectators, and the Saudi team pulling one of the largest upsets in the history, it was really an amazing experience to be in.
Now, one of the things that's come out of this, I think, and which people aren't really aware, is the deep and sort of organic football culture in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been fans for decades, generations. You have home teams, but so this is an outpoint of what already existed. This isn't new material, and also, I gather that there's some rituals and some things that for Saudi fans going to, and maybe it's with their clubs, but I mean, what was clear in all the reporting about this World Cup is you knew where the Saudi fans were because you could see them and you could hear them.
Yeah. And like even some of the chants were like adopted by like different countries and different nationalities. Like some Brazilians fans now borrow some of our quotes and some of our chants. So this kind of soft influence was really clear coming off from the Saudi fans. We were really there. We were present. I saw a video from a Qatari citizen who was really sad about the Saudi team being knocked out from the group stage, because Doha has like kind of slowed down after we left.
Yeah.
We occupied the whole city. Everybody was just having a like fun time there with everybody. So it's a great.
How was it getting there?
Oh, it was smooth. So luckily I tried two different like transportations, let's say. And the first match I flew there from Riyadh. So there's like I think there are two flights are an hour. I think there's like 65 flights a day from different airports in Saudi Arabia. So I flew in the morning, like very just very casually, parked my car at the airport, flew to Qatar. The custom and immigration was really seamless and great. Um, it was, yeah, just your like I wouldn't say normal flight. It was even more fun than your normal flight because it's a shorter flight too.
Right.
And once we got there, passport checkpoints was really easy, and then buses were ready for us to pick us up to the metro station, where we then diffused to our hotels and different sites.
How was local? Because that Doha apparently during the group stage was moving a daily average of over 700,000 passengers during that group stage.
I could attest to that. Yeah, definitely. It was, I mean, being in the metro itself was an experience because everybody was having a great time chanting the national anthem, and then the Argentine fans would just follow back and then reply to our. So it was a great time, and like all in love and peace, and like zero violence, zero aggression in from any part. I did not see anything. I did not witness anything. I know some incidents happen, but when you compare it to like what could have happened elsewhere for like a major a tournament like this, I think it was it was really peaceful. Let me just leave it at that. It was really peaceful and loving experience.
It seems to have so far seems to have gone pretty seamlessly. And you mentioned sort of adopting teams, and there seemed to be regional pride about that victory over Argentina. I mean, not just Saudis; everyone was excited about it in the Arab world.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, this is kind of a cool World Cup. You had three teams for the first time, three countries in the Asian Football Confederation get through to 16.
Mm-hmm.
South
Yeah.
Korea, Australia, and Japan. You had two African teams, Senegal and Morocco, get through to 16. I mean, I think this is one of the first times I think in 2000, since 2002, that teams from five different continents got through.
Really? Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
And there just seemed to be a lot of pride in how the sort of the Asian cup Asian Federation teams, football federation teams performed, and as well as teams like Morocco and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, it was like an Arabic festival when we won against Argentina, and I think that is due to a lot of factors. First, it's against Argentina, like Messi is
Yeah.
there, and like the contextual factors about how the game went on, like when we kind of did a remontada was like 1-0, and then we flipped it 2-1. Like that fact really energized people, and it kept everybody on their toes for the 90 minutes duration. So I wouldn't just attribute it to Argentina, but I think even like the scenario through which the match went through also helped making everything festive in the Arab world.
Yeah.
Messi, it's the World Cup for Messi, so people were like watching. Everybody was watching this match, and we were able to pull it off, to flip the result.
It was something because you had a dynamic there because Messi, of course, is a leading spokesman for Saudi Arabia. It's the tourism, and you
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah,
Lionel Messi everywhere in Saudi advertising, and he's
yeah.
beloved in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, he is. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, again, it wasn't like rivalry or like aggression. It was just love and like soccer, like pure joy and a pure soccer business. There
yeah,
wasn't anything personal. Even the jokes afterwards and the chanting were just really funny. I think if Messi like knew and heard about these, he would laugh too.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you
I'm glad
went
you
to,
used soccer, by the way.
yeah,
Say what?
I said I'm glad you used soccer instead of football, by the way.
Oh
Our
yeah,
American
yeah.
listeners are going to appreciate
There
no.
you go.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
half of our American listeners are going, "Oh, that's what they're talking about."
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've seen the pictures where like there's a ball and a soccer player kicking the ball and there's an arrow saying a ball, a foot. And then there's a football, American football, like an egg-shaped ball, and then a hand. This should be called an egg hand
Egg ball.
or egg ball kind of thing. Yeah.
There are, and there's a current commercial now with Peyton Manning and David Beckham about
That's
just.
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So you went to, what was the other match you went to?
So the other match was the disappointing match against Mexico. We had a chance to advance, but we really did poorly that match. I left the stadium even before the whistle. Just I don't want to be stuck with the
Right.
and there was no hope really. I mean, watching that game was really disappointing because we had a lot of players who were not ready due to injuries and due to yellow cards and not being able to play. So we were definitely underperforming, and we we just
I,
lost.
I tell you, Mexico really brought it.
And they did. I mean, I was surprised by their spectator base there. I mean, I understand us Saudis were like a couple of hours away, but Mexican fans coming from all the way from like Mexico, it was really overwhelming, and it's really interesting to see the base. It was large. It was a large crowd, definitely.
So it's
Mhm.
interesting. The number of fan visitors, Saudi Arabia leads. Second was India. Third was the U.S. Fourth
Mhm.
was the UK. No, actually, fourth was Mexico.
It's very interesting to me because
Yeah.
you would think we had you would think we have a large expat community here in the Gulf, but we don't
Yeah.
for Mexicans. So those people must have come all the way from
Yeah.
like really overseas.
That wasn't a morning commute, was it?
It wasn't yeah, exactly. As opposed to Argentinians, I think that's what they call Argentinians. A lot of them are based from Dubai. So when I talk to some of these people, they just flew from Dubai. So it kind of made sense to me, because also there was a large crowd from Argentina, surprisingly. But no, like the Mexicans, they did it great. They must love soccer to death, man. Yeah.
Well, it was, I tell you, it was fun watching the Saudi team. And I say this as, obviously we're fans of the American team. And the Saudis, they very aggressive, very, and actually also they also led in the group round. They also led all teams in yellow cards. So they're very,
Yeah. Yeah.
but again, very aggressive. When you watch the U.S. team, and the U.S. team got through, I mean, it was clear they weren't going to win.
Mm.
Beat the Netherlands, but it's a different experience. Lucian, you may agree. I mean, they're young, they're fast, they're midfield strong. Their strikers and forwards are just really average at best. So they basically got through on their defense. It's not an exciting, obviously if you watch it, the technical part and that's it, but it's the Saudi brand of football for me was much more exciting to watch than the American brand. I don't know what's your opinion, Lucian.
Well, they were all sort of from the same team, right? They were all from Al Hilal, pretty much, which may get
Yeah.
Ronaldo
Yeah.
now next. So they had that sort of team cohesiveness. It looked like to me, a
Absolutely.
complete amateur viewer of soccer.
No, you got it right.
Yeah, yeah, which is really cool. I mean, there's sort of like the team chemistry and stuff. But yeah, and Richard, we've talked about this before, but I was in Holland in the Netherlands in 2010 when the Netherlands was in the final against Spain, and that was absolutely pandemonium.
Bonkers.
Yeah, just absolutely bonkers, and they lost, which was was not the same peaceful, sad crowd that
Yeah,
Dr. Mohammed
exactly.
is describing.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
one of as you said, it's very peaceful and everything in Doha, which is nice. I think part of the reason is states like the UK for sure banned something like 1,500 known hooligans from going.
They
So
did.
I think you had, then that was, I think it might be the same thing in France as well. And they
Wow.
basically identified troublemakers, and they were not given visas or allowed to go.
Wow. I mean, the absence of alcohol helped too.
Yeah.
Everybody was sober, and when you're sober, you tend to be more like a little bit wiser. So
Yeah, yeah. It still seemed pretty rowdy in the stands, though. So I don't think people needed alcohol to get excited.
yeah,
At
yeah,
least
yeah.
that's how it looked from the viewer on the
Uh-huh.
No,
TV.
no, no. Like excitement was up in the air, really. Like everybody was excited there. It's fun. I may go again actually.
Yes,
Well,
tell us about that. Are you gonna go back? Do you have a plan, or is it what's
Yeah,
going on?
yeah. I have a plan to go attend the quarterfinal. I think my my calculation that would be the game between Argentina and Brazil. So
holy
that would
smokes.
be one hell of a game
Oh my
to
goodness.
attend to. Yeah, yeah. And since it's Doha, I think it must be safe. I wouldn't go to the game elsewhere.
I would
No, I
agree
would
with
not go.
that. 100%. 100%. I'd be watching that on TV if it weren't in Doha, but
Yeah, yep, exactly. So I think we're gonna just me and a bunch of my friends, we're gonna just drive again from the East Coast and just attend the game for the day.
so if you're driving, you're driving, I know Eastern Province is your home province. If you're driving, don't you have to park at the border?
Yeah, you do. So you park your vehicle at the border and then you jump into a bus for free. And then you just stop 10 minutes through, you stop for passports, you jump back into the same bus, and then that bus takes you to Doha.
Pretty simple.
Really simple. I mean, like my family, who like we have a bunch. I have a bunch of nephews and nieces. They're going there tomorrow, and we wouldn't allow them to go if it's like tiring or something.
Right.
But it's really smooth, and would be really a shame to miss such an event because this event's not gonna be happening again unless I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
So family members are going. It's that smooth, you know.
Maybe in 2030, you guys will
Yeah. When you do
have a
I
it,
don't
shot.
know. Yeah, I don't know. There've been rumors. I'm sure you've heard some of the rumors.
well, yeah, I guess Saudi is maybe throwing in with Egypt and even Greece.
And
Yeah.
Greece, yeah, and I think the sport minister kind of alluded that we are not going to do that uh, uh, in CNN last week, but it's not an official denial of the rumor.
Yeah, well, you never with Saudi Arabia, you never know. They're throwing their hat in the ring for all sorts of major,
True,
world showcases.
true.
Uh, but anyway, and it's how's the spirit been in Kingdom? I mean, even just on the streets, I imagine there's a lot of talk all day long about well, now the Saudis eliminated, but during that the group round.
Oh, it was really hopeful. A lot of people held like really strong belief in the team, especially after our victory against Argentina. That was, I mean, had we lost against Argentina, things would have been really normal. We know that we would be not making it through, but it's that victory that kind of raised expectations. So it did kind of disservice us emotionally because it raised the expectations and raised our hopes. While objectively speaking, given the squad, given the names, the proper expectation is that we should be losing and we should be last in our group.
True.
But what happened against Argentina kind of flipped this whole equation.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, oh, who are gonna meet again? We're gonna meet Brazil in the quarterfinal. Like we were like in fantasy and imagination got so far, and then boom against Poland. And it's all, I think it's all due to that penalty kick, which we missed against Poland. I think that moment was very, very influential because had we scored in that penalty, we would have advanced 1-0 and we would have just carried through the game like lions and tigers. But we missed that penalty kick, and I think that was it. That was the flip point.
Yeah, and as fans, we all get our hopes up. But let's face it, that Polish goalie stuffed a lot of people. He was good.
The goalkeeper?
Yeah, for Poland.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's an octopus. Yeah, yeah, he's crazy. His hand was all over the place. And he got one against Messi too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
He
I mean,
saved
he
he
it
saved the
wasn't just
penalty kick.
Saudi. Yeah.
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 He was killing hopes and dreams of people all over the
Yeah.
globe.
I'm sure Salim Al-Dosari, the player who missed the penalty, felt so much relief after Messi
That's
kind of
true.
missed his
That's
kick.
true. So what do you think about this talk of Cristiano coming to El Nasa?
That would be so crazy. That would be so intense. Like we didn't have such a status player over in Saudi for like I think Diego Maradona visited once
Hmm.
and played for the Ahli club for like I think a friendly game.
Right.
Um, but that was it. I mean, we do have players coming in for Riyadh seasons and all the celebration, but for a player in this status to play in our league, that would be really a game changer. Even if we're talking about soft power, if we're talking about marketing the league globally, I think it would be a new beginning if he really ends up coming because he would just kind of uh, paves the way for other stars to normalize coming and
Right.
making Saudi Arabia just like the US league, where a lot of people, a lot of stars retire there. Um,
Right.
I totally understand it from a marketing and PR perspective, and I think it's really smart. I think it's going to cost 2 billion real overall.
And
Uh,
yeah, an enormous
it's
amount of money.
just it's just enormous amount, but I'm pretty confident that people did their calculations.
Well, yes, you're right, and Saudi Arabia has been very aggressive, and we talk about it here as in loss leaders. Basically, you do this not only because you want to bring his talent and skills, but for what it does for the larger football ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think they're going over like to that kind of side of influence, and as also to increase the market value of the league, the all these kind of uh, other side like peripheral things about soccer, but the game, not the game itself, but all the ecosystem, the
Right.
tourism, the sport industry, the global presence of Saudi Arabia to media and channels overseas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting times, Mohammed.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. I mean, so soccer here in Saudi Arabia is like football in the US. It's the major sport, it's the dominating sport. So it's a great season right now. A lot of cafes, a lot of restaurants are showing these matches in big screens. Although that we were eliminated, the interest to watch the games is still there. The daily talk in Twitter and our discourse, and even like at work, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the matches, the different expectations, and the scores. So it's the dominating conversation now. And I heard from a couple of friends who work in marketing agencies, all of their marketing campaigns about non-soccer things, they've been like really dismal. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's like doing any business. A lot of like the views, the likes, the retweets, anything non-soccer is really suffering right now.
Yeah. What's cool here too is that when Saudi Arabia beat Argentina, and Richard, you can kind of attest to this. It's so rare, and we follow this so closely every single day. It's so rare when there's just one overwhelmingly positive view of Saudi Arabia in the United
Yeah,
States, and that was just dominated the coverage for days here. Was the
yeah,
underdog story. Everybody loved that,
yeah, yeah.
especially here because we're always the underdog in soccer. So we were like, look, it's possible. It was
Yeah,
really cool to see.
yeah. I think one of the Japanese players when they beat, I think they beat Germany 2-1, and the same upset, same scenario,
Right.
1-0, and then they kind of flipped it. I think in his interview he mentioned that we were inspired by what happened with the Saudis, because we preceded the game like 2 days before them. So it was some sort of inspiration to the underdogs.
I
And
it was it's that game in particular, Lucian. I don't know. When we're doing our work, so I sometimes have it on in the background, and I was watching, so that was on, and it was they were down, and I stepped away for a moment, and they were up.
Well, that was the day, Richard, we were speaking with Prince Turki Al Faisal.
Oh, there you go.
And he told us, he's like, yeah, Japan's ahead. And we were like, what? Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. Prince Turki Al Faisal was
he was watching it right before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, what's your club, your Saudi club? Do you have a favorite?
So I have, so it's the really like the icon of underdogs. It's called a Shabab, the youth. It's called a Shabab. I think like there's only a bunch of us, but I was growing up in an era where that team was like leading the charts. So that's what I'm with a Shabab.
It's true. You're sort of you're at the mercy of your childhood favorites, who you were growing up with, and it gets into your DNA, and you'll be a Shabab fan your whole life.
Exactly. Richard and I are Al Faya FC fans, based in Al Majma. Yeah, because we toured their stadium in 2017. Yeah, we did.
Wow.
We did. So we were like, this is going to be our team now.
That's a good pull, Lucian, because I was trying to remember that.
It's one of the really smallest teams here or clubs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Underdog story. We may not have Ronaldo yet, but we're getting there,
We're plucky.
Absolutely.
Dr. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us.
You.
Really a great discussion. Please send us a photo or something if you go back for the quarterfinal, and let us know you're safe in that atmosphere. It might be really competitive.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll send you WhatsApp, Richard.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you have any pictures of you in the previous games, we'd love to have that too. But Mohammed, this was terrific. Thanks so much for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
That was our very fun, awesome conversation with Dr. Mohammed Alhajji, a alum of the 966, who joined us to discuss his visit to Qatar to watch the Green Falcons and how he may be going back for the quarterfinals. So have fun, Dr. Mohammed. And Richard, this was fun.
This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did a World Cup episode. And if you get to see the video version of this on our YouTube channel, you'll see pictures of Dr. Mohammed in Doha and some of his buddies, dressed up and stuff. And he's a great representation of how avid and enthusiastic Saudi fans are about this event.
Yep. And they are bidding for the World Cup in 2030, and they might get it with Greece and Egypt. So something to look at.
They're getting the Asian Cup in 2027.
Yes, because India dropped out. So that's just they're in the pole position. And thank you to Dr. Abdulaziz Al Nazi for the awesome Green Falcons jersey. This is sweet.
Aziz, come on.
I'll get you a U.S. World Cup one, and you can use it as a bath towel or whatever, because they're not any good. But Richard, thanks very much. See you next week.
Thank you, Lucian.